out. One of the things that we would like to do today is also hear from you about where you're joining us from, which country you're joining us from this evening or this afternoon or this morning, and also hear from you what cooperatives mean to you. So we're going to share a screen just now, and you're going to just let us know in your own words, a couple of things around what cooperatives mean to you, but also at the same time, you will let us know where you're dialing in from. So if you could please look at your screens right now. What we have is a code. Just go to menti.com. You can do so on your cell phone. You can open another tab on your screen and just go to www.menti.com. Or if you have your smartphone, you can just scan the QR code. And what that will do, it'll bring you up to where we're asking you these two wonderful questions. They're going to be very brief, but it would just be, it's interesting for us to know where you're joining us from. So 1759 when you're prompted. Again, the code is 53651759. And then when you get into it, you'll see a little love heart. If you just click on that, we're able to know that you have joined us, and then we'll be able to go into the questions. So please go ahead and click on either scan the code or go to www.menti.com, enter the code 53651759. And as more of you put in your information, we'll be able to all see it here on the screen, and then we'll go into the two questions. So please go to menti.com, enter the code or scan it, and let's hear where you're joining us from. I see 36 of you have joined us. 38 of you have put in the information. We're 86 of us. If we can get to about 40, then we can go into the questions. Please keep going. Let's have one more person join in. And there we are, we're at 41. So let's get into the questions. So where are you joining us from? Please go ahead and tell us where you're joining us from. And that's the same question being asked in Spanish. Please go ahead and tell us. We have people from Peru, from the Philippines, from Paraguay, from Belgium, from Chicago, from Syracuse, New York. We have people from Maryland, from Lebanon, from Italy. This is exciting. From Kenya, the most people are from the Philippines, and you guys are joining us in the evening. So thank you so much for doing that. I see Philippines has taken the day, seconded by Washington, D.C. We still have a few people from Paraguay, from Guatemala, from the Czech Republic. Oh, this is great. We've got a multi-continental representation here this afternoon or this evening. We can go into the next question, which is, what do cooperatives mean to you? You can tell us this in a few words. We can give you up to 3, and please go ahead and tell us, what do cooperatives mean to you? We also want to hear from you today. We hear community, opportunity, equity, progress, resilience, equitable business. So all of these things, local ownership, mutual trust, a collective effort, a vehicle to serve people. This is wonderful. Keep giving us your views as we look at all the research that we're going to talk about today. We're going to keep this window open just for a few more minutes as this keeps going. But meanwhile, I want to, I'm looking at the time, and it is time for us to start with our program today. Thank you so much for participating, all 44 of you, and welcome to the 100 participants who are here with us this morning. We're so pleased that you've managed to join us. My name is Wageshi Getata Kiriga. I'm going to be your moderator for today, and I am really, truly excited to be here with you. I'm dialing in from Nairobi. It's good afternoon. It's good evening to those who are joining us from the Philippines. Good morning to those of you who are on Eastern time in North America, and welcome to each and every one of you. I'm so pleased that you're able to join us here today. We're going to be looking at the results of a 3-year journey that has been undertaken by OCDC with funding from USAID and with collaboration across continents, across countries. And it's really talking about what difference do cooperatives make? And it's sometimes a feeling, right? And this time around, it's more than that. It's actually evidence, it's data, it's research that has been carried out meticulously and thoroughly. And we're going to look at all of this. And more importantly, we're going to share views with people from these 4 countries that was a focus of the research. So we're going to have guests from Poland, from Peru, from the Philippines, and from Kenya. And of course, we're going to have all of you who have joined us from across the world as we discuss these findings. And I welcome you to today's session, and I'm so pleased that you're able to join us. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. We heard from Leah, those of you who joined immediately, and Leah was explaining to us about the channels that you have. Today's session is going to be in both English and Spanish. If you look at your icon at the bottom, if you're on your laptop, it's right along where you have, number of participants, how you can raise your hand, the Q&A. There's a piece that has an icon of the globe. And there you can click on it to choose the channel. You have to choose a channel, actually, if you're going to have clear sound. So if you are listening in English, please click on the English channel. If you are listening in Spanish, please click on the Spanish channel. And just so you know, if you're if we have a speaker in Spanish and you're on the English channel, so obviously you'll get the translation. We do have our translators switching every 15 to 20 minutes so that they can get a break. So don't be startled or think that you're in a different conference when you hear a different voice. We have a couple of them who are helping us today. And we're also really excited that they come from a cooperative. So again, it's walking the talk, and that's part and parcel of what OCDC is doing by having, again, cooperatives making a difference to us in our summit today by providing that translation. Again, we're also going to be using the chat function and the Q&A function of Zoom today for any questions that you have. You can ask your questions in English or in Spanish. I think you can even ask them in Polish or Kiswahili. We can get you translation. Please go ahead and put in the language with which you are most comfortable. Put that in the Q&A section. We are not going to be addressing those questions live, unfortunately, just because it's a really tight schedule. But what we will do, and what we have said we've committed to doing, is making sure that you get the written questions over to you in the next 2 weeks. So that's something that the OCDC team has committed to doing. So go ahead and ask your questions as they come to you. You don't have to wait at the end. You can go ahead and put them straight away in the Q&A function. On the chat, what we would like to do is have you put in any of your comments. Those of you who didn't get to participate in the Mentee earlier, you can tell us in the comments where you're joining us from, whether you're a member of a cooperative, a research organization, private sector, academia, government. Let us know. You can put that in the chat. We want to make the chat as interactive as we possibly can. And then, of course, the Q&A section as well, where all of your questions will be addressed. So we'll be having our keynote join us very shortly. And as soon as I'm given the cue that he'll be on board with us, we're going to go ahead and hear from him. But like I said, this time around, if you have any questions, please do go ahead and put them on the Q&A. We'll have those written out and sent over to you via email. And of course, we're hoping that you're tuning in on the right language channel as we go through today. Thank you. I'm seeing the chat comments are starting to come in. Walter, Chief Communications Officer at the Credit Union Trade Association in Massachusetts. You're most welcome. Gun Britt from Sweden. Karibu sana, that's why we say it in Kiswahili. Karibu means welcome. So welcome to today's session. Ashley, it's very good to see you. You've worn a couple of different hats in this journey, and now you're with Global Communities and you were formerly at OCDC. It's great to have you on board. Frank Sita from the Small Business Development Center in New York. Karibu sana. Carrie Onyancha, hi Carrie, joining from Minnesota, but we know you're Kenyan too. So welcome to the summit, all of you. This is so good to have you on. I've been told that our keynote speaker has joined us, and we're really pleased to welcome our keynote today. And that's Carl Fickenshire, who is the acting assistant administrator of the Bureau for Development, Democracy and Innovation. So they're actually a central resource center supporting USAID field missions. And as I mentioned, USAID is the funder of this research that has been taking place over the last 3 days. Last 3 years, not 3 days, my goodness. And they have been real supporters and true partners to the cooperative movement that Carl is able to be our keynote guest for today. It's actually quite good that he's the person who's speaking to us today, because his wealth of experience actually cuts across these different continents that we're doing the research in. Prior to being in the DDI, as they call it, he was at the Center for Economics and Market Development. He was overseeing missions in South and East Africa. He has been in Tanzania. He has been in Southern Africa. Prior to his civil service, he was in private practice with a law firm in San Francisco that also had a global presence in Tokyo and London and California. So, you bring a worldview, Carl, and we're really excited that you're able to talk to us this morning, and welcome to the summit, and we look forward to having your remarks.
Okay, I hope you all can hear me. Asante sana. Amjambo mabibi danabobona. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's really exciting to see the participation from several of our partner countries today. Let me thank you first, Mama Wangesi, for the kind introduction. And I'd also like to have a special thank you for the U.S. Overseas Cooperative Development Council for hosting this very important event. On behalf of the U.S. Agency for International Development, it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's Evidence Summit. What difference do cooperatives make? Today's event showcased new multi-country research examining the impacts that cooperatives and credit unions have on the lives of members, their families, and their communities. We'll also highlight the legacy of USAID's partnership with these inclusive businesses initiated over 2 decades ago. Our agency has proudly partnered with cooperatives and credit unions around the world to achieve shared development goals since its inception 60 years ago. Many of you weren't born then, and I was fairly young, shall we say. The Cooperative Development Program helps further some of AID's main development priorities, including locally led development, inclusive economic growth, private sector engagement, positive youth development, and women's economic empowerment. Now, this program has successfully boosted the productivity and market access of agricultural cooperatives. It's advanced national credit union associations. It's improved the efficiency of rural electric cooperatives, scaled health insurance cooperatives, and mobilized urban youth through worker-owned cooperative models. More recently, the program's invested in building a rigorous evidence base, including the research we're going to discuss today, to inform the development community's approach to cooperative development. As I think we all know, evidence and learning are critical to effective development programming and sustainable outcomes. The OCDC's research group is demonstrating real leadership in this space by investigating whether and how cooperatives across diverse contexts and countries are making a measurable economic and social difference in the lives of their members. At USAID, we've seen great strides in sharing knowledge with our country-level partners and by practicing data-informed decision-making. We're very pleased to learn that this research has already generated momentum within policy circles in several participating countries. Today, we have a unique opportunity to hear from thought leaders and stakeholders from cooperative development communities across Kenya, Peru, the Philippines, and Poland. They'll explore and comment on the importance and applicability of the evidence in their respective countries. And it's our hope that this research will continue to inspire others to recognize the value of cooperative development. I look forward to a productive and invigorating summit. Thank you again to OCDC for hosting this event, and thank you all for your participation. Asanteni-san.
Thank you so much, Carl. That was excellent, and it touches on all of those things that we're going to talk about today. And your Kiswahili is still good, so karibu tena, come back to East Africa. We'll be very happy to have you back.
Nitarudi.
And thank you again for your kind remarks. Tunakungoja, so come. And thank you, and we do hope that you'll be able to stay with us for at least part of the summit, if not all of it. It would be brilliant to just know that you're here with us for the next couple of hours. But what we are going to hear from right now is going to be a video message from ICA, which is the International Cooperative Alliance. It's the Director General, and his name is Bruno Roland. Bruno is head of the International Cooperative Alliance, which actually is across 105 countries. And it started in 1895. And it actually represents 1.2 billion people. So those are the number of people who are members of cooperatives across the world. And I'm a member of one. In Kenya, we have savings and credit cooperatives that we call SACCOs. I'm a proud member of there's 1.2 billion others just like me who are members of cooperatives of different types and different varieties. So we look forward to hearing the video message from Bruno, and I'm going to turn it over to our tech team to go ahead and play that video. Thank you.
Hello and greetings from the International Cooperative Alliance. We strongly welcome the study What Difference Do Cooperatives Make, which is being presented today at this Evidence Summit. And we thank OCDC for having promoted it. A first reason why we welcome this study is that it focuses on key developmental criteria to be used in the measurement of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, like income and equality, the status of women, the reinforcement of community development, including investment, infrastructure, employment, and entrepreneurship. Indeed, if we want to explain and demonstrate cooperative contribution in the world, it is fundamental to focus on developmental criteria and on cooperatives' impact on community development, and not only on the growth of cooperatives per se. Back in 2001, the UN had proclaimed that cooperatives in their various forms promote the fullest possible participation in the economic and social development of all people, including women, youth, older persons, and people with disabilities, and are becoming a major factor of economic and social development. But today, we still lack strong scientific evidence to fully demonstrate this statement by the UN. A second reason why we welcome this study is methodological. It focuses on 4 different countries in different parts of the world: Poland, Peru, Kenya, and the Philippines. These are sufficiently valid samples to examine if constants can be observed in all 4 national environments or not. And a third, and even more fundamental, reason why we welcome this study is that it is policy-oriented. We need policy-oriented research on which development proposals can then be constructed. Indeed, if we want policy proposals to be fully credible so that policymakers can evaluate to what extent implementing them is an investment rather than a cost, then they must be backed by hard data. The importance of having cooperative policy proposals backed by cooperative research is enshrined in the ICA 2020-2030 strategic plan. And it is also why we have recently created human resource capacities at the ICA to work more strongly on both research and policy. I would like to emphasize in particular the need to promote cooperative statistics. The ICA and COPAC, the UN Committee for the Promotion of Cooperatives, did the groundwork for the adoption of the guidelines concerning statistics of cooperatives by the ILO International Conference of Labor Statisticians in October 2018. In particular, these guidelines propose a specific categorization of cooperative members and cooperative workers, which makes it possible to better calculate cooperative employment. And they also propose to classify cooperatives according to the UN ICRG system of classification of all economic activities, so that economic importance and diversity of cooperatives can be better assessed. There is still a long way to go before national statistical institutes incorporate cooperative statistics as recommended in these guidelines, and we should work actively in this direction in order to then be able to consolidate cooperative statistics at the global level. So we look forward to reading this study in detail, and we hope that it will encourage many more studies of this type in the future. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very good meeting. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to Bruno Roland and the ICA, OCDC, and a lot of the people on this call here today are part and parcel or somehow affiliated to the global cooperative movement, of which ICA is one of the leading apex bodies. So we are really grateful for that. I like what he said about consolidating statistics and really looking at how this can be used at a global level, going back to what Carl said about data-driven advocacy. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome our next speaker, who is Dr. Judith Hermansen. She is the research director at OCDC, the team that is behind this particular piece of research that we're going to be hearing about today. Judith has an impressive background and in a global experience, both in her work and in her publication across different countries in the world, whether it's Africa or Asia or Latin America, Europe, the Middle East, the US. You know, she has a breadth of experience and tenure that she brings to the table and is able to pull all of these threads together to bring us something that is truly outstanding. So we've this research, part of the history of it, and what God, you know,
Hello, a warm welcome to you all. I'm not sure if Wangesi is still speaking. She seems to have had a technical problem and is frozen there. But I'm Judith, and I really welcome each of you. It's great to see you all from across the globe come together as a community interested in cooperative development. I have the great honor, and I'm really excited to be presenting the evidence that our research project, What Difference Do Cooperatives Make, has developed. Before I do that, though, on behalf of OCDC's International Cooperative Research Group, I do want to say thank you to everyone who has supported this effort and made it possible here today. We appreciate USAID's support and all the distinguished speakers who will deepen our understanding of the evidence and its implications, as well as our CDO and other partners along the way. This is a team effort, a cooperative effort, shall we say. The International Cooperative Research Group began the What Difference Do Cooperatives Make in the face of increasing income inequality faced by many countries across the globe. Co-op members join hands to advance their shared economic and social goals. They do so within a defined cooperative structure governed by members and using a democratic decision-making process. Cooperatives are independent, and their fuel is the priorities and aspirations of their members. So it seems a no-brainer that as a values-based business model, cooperatives can help to level the playing field and provide a pathway to lessen that inequality. However, hypothesizing and knowing are two quite different things. So we began the journey that brought us here today by asking the simple question, what difference do cooperatives make? We did not know what the answer we would get. We believed through intuition, observation, anecdote, that cooperatives are making a difference in the lives of members and communities in countries around the world. But how could we know the broader impact? So we designed What Difference Do Cooperatives Make to try to find that out. Today, we are so pleased to share with you the compelling outcomes of this rigorous research, and also through this summit to help move the evidence into policy and practice. It's not just enough to have the research, we need to move it forward so it can be applied. In What Difference Do Cooperatives Make, we studied in 4 countries, Kenya, Peru, Philippines, Poland. We selected these countries because they are in different regions of the world, so you can see there. And they have cultures and cooperative histories that also differ. We didn't want cookie cutter, we wanted to see what we might be able to generalize from a diverse representation of circumstances and countries. This study was purposefully designed to draw high-level conclusions across the sectors in countries. We are interested in understanding whether the cooperative business model itself makes a difference, regardless of the area of operations. Some people will think of cooperatives as primarily ag, some will think of them as financial, but we wanted to know, is there a cooperative difference that applies across the sectors? One thing that the cooperatives that we studied in this, in What Difference Do Cooperatives Make, have in common is that they are independent private entities and they adhere to the international cooperative principles. Each of the country studies for each of these countries is data rich, and I hope that you will read each of these studies. They are available. Our attention today, however, is on the body of evidence that is drawn together in the Global Outcomes Report prepared for this summit that I hope each of you have. We found strikingly similar economic, social, and community outcomes for each of the 4 countries. Today, we focus on these compelling high-level outcomes. The International Cooperative Research Group, I'll call it your research group for ease as we go forward, uses academic rigor to develop evidence and create new knowledge in 2 areas, cooperative policy and operations. You will notice our tagline, academic rigor, practical application, cooperative excellence. And this tagline underpins, or the concepts in it, underpin the What Difference Do Cooperatives Make. To allow us to make comparisons across countries, we use the same mixed method research design, and the same questionnaires in each. We piloted the design in instruments in Poland, tested the instruments for reliability and validity in each country, making vocabulary and other minor adjustments as necessary. More than 8,000 people, including the survey respondents and key stakeholders, participated in the research. So you can see this was a pretty big undertaking for us. The governing research question was, do cooperatives make an economic and social difference in the lives of their members and in the communities in which they are located? And in trying to define whether they do or answer this question, we wanted to know if this difference that they might make is measurable. The mixed method field research design included quantitative review and qualitative key informant and focus group data collection. We quantified and compared the member and non-member responses, these are the 2 comparison groups, to the survey questions. We used official income and other publicly available data to triangulate outcomes and to inform the interpretation of our data. Stakeholder engagement was very important to us along the way, central to our methodology, to ensure accurate understanding and, very importantly, local ownership of the outcomes. We co-hosted policy dialogues with partners in each country to discuss interim findings before we finalized our reports. And these were valuable for the insights that they provided in each country, as well as, which we weren't necessarily expecting, the platform that they provided for broader discussion of cooperatives and how they relate to a development in each of the countries there. This slide, I'm just going to not go through it, just mention it quickly. It shows the random representative sample of about 1,000 cooperative members in each country, scientifically drawn to reflect the geographic distribution and types of cooperatives, as well as the demographics of the membership. And there is a comparison group of approximately 1,000 people who are not members. And this was drawn also from the communities of the member sample to represent the population at large. When we began this research project, as I said before, we did not know where it would lead. It could be that we couldn't measure the difference. We hypothesized, though, that there would be one. And what has impressed us with the 5 major outcomes that we're sharing with you today is the consistent pattern that has emerged across the 4 countries. The main themes of the story about cooperatives in each country that the data tells strengthens the cooperative narrative for each country and globally. In all 4 countries, we found that members of cooperatives are more likely to have incomes at average or above average than the comparison group and the overall population. In each country, the differences are measurable, and in each country, co-op members tend to be above average. Not everybody, of course, we're talking generally, but this is the pattern. The gray bars here represent where members on average stand economically, and the blue bars represent those who are not members. Results have been triangulated with national income statistics. Further interpretation shows that on average, there are differences, what the differences are for the countries. There are 27% difference in earnings in Peru between members and the comparison group. In Kenya, 11% difference. In the Philippines, 10% difference. And in Poland, a 9% difference. So these averages help us to underscore, to quantify, to measure the cooperative difference making in the lives of the members. Also, I don't have a chart here. There are plenty of these charts, but I wanted to mention a related finding that co-op members are also less likely to be living in poverty. They are not as prevalent within the poor or very poor socioeconomic categories as the comparison group or the population at large. So we think this is pretty compelling stuff. In this slide, we see that cooperative members have greater social capital. We measured social capital during the study through the proxies of trust, participation and membership in other organizations, and social networks. The study also addressed direct and social benefits provided. This slide shows the level of trust in each country, with co-op members being more trusting than their fellow citizens or non-members. Well, why would we be interested in this? Well, trust is a sign of social solidarity and part of the glue that holds a society together. So it is good for the co-op members, but it's also good for the society as a whole. And in the other social proxies that you can read about in the individual studies, they show similar patterns where the social capital of members is greater than those who are not members. So in member-owned and driven organizations, member views are very good proxies for the cooperative performance. But even so, in our study, What Difference Do Cooperatives Make?, we do not directly attribute causation to cooperatives. Instead, we juxtapose the data to understand the economic and social effects on members and on communities by comparing, as I've just been doing, member and non-member respondents and triangulating these with official statistics. but what will members themselves say? And in this chart, you can see that in the 4 countries, the majority of respondents either agree or strongly agree that their membership benefits them economically. This is something that they believe in, and they're sort of voting with their feet, I guess, by staying members of the cooperative. Also, most agree that cooperatives contribute directly to their financial security and quality of life. There are some differences here, they're between the countries or among the countries, but they all add up to the fact that whether it's they attribute it mostly to financial security or quality of life, these two merge, and they attribute that to their cooperative membership. We know from the data already shared that cooperative members overall are likely to be better off than their comparison group and the population at large. Just spent a little time talking with you about that. But what about women? So we disaggregated our data for women, and we found that there is a definite cooperative advantage for them as well. They are better off and are less likely to be poor than the average woman. So the economic benefits are significant. In addition, we were very impressed by what women most valued as cooperative members. These top 3 across that just came onto the screen across the country, across the 4 countries, they do include economics, but they also include the access to livelihoods and skills and knowledge development. And taken together, these bear out what the qualitative data also showed. In that data, many women talk about valuing the independence and self-confidence that they have gained from being a cooperative member. So here we come to the last of our big 5. Do cooperatives serve their wider communities as well? This data is more challenging to understand. However, non-members, who are mostly our respondents here, do see specific value from cooperatives in their communities. Cooperatives are seen to play a role in attracting investment, creating employment, and in overall economic development. In all countries, half or more of the non-member respondents saw a positive impact in at least one of these areas as a result of cooperative being located in their community. In addition, which I'm not showing here, but co-ops do, not all, but many, sponsor various types of social programs for the entire community. And these can range from health education to sports clinics to other kind of service delivery. And when these are available, these are also highly valued by both members who have access to them, but also the non-members who are given that access. So, 4 countries with these shared outcomes, powerful outcomes in each. Just to summarize, members have better economic standing, they have greater social capital, greater sense of overall well-being, and for communities, cooperatives are recognized as having a community-wide impact, and they present powerful opportunities for women. These outcomes together tell a story both of the accomplishment of cooperatives and the potential of cooperative development. I invite each of you to read the 4 country studies that from which the global findings that I've just reported on and others are based. We have in this data, a powerful narrative about cooperatives and the positive difference in ordinary people's lives across the world. And these are important and encouraging outcomes. It shows that the cooperative business model, good for people, good for communities and economies, and good for countries. Yes, cooperatives are making a measurable positive difference for their members. This is our one big conclusion. So, as I said, cooperatives are making this difference, and that's great, and we can now measure it. Does that mean that we just go along our merry way? No. I think that what it means is how do we mobilize cooperatives to make a difference for the people who are not above average income, the people who are still striving? How do we do that? So each of us, whether we're in a cooperative, whether we're a private citizen, whether we're in advocacy, whatever we are, we have a role that we can play, and these will range. What will the International Cooperative Research Group do? We are committed to sharing the evidence and the story it tells with policymakers and practitioners everywhere. We'll work with partners in the 4 countries and others around the world to help translate the evidence into action through dissemination, learning events throughout this year, and also taking a deeper dive into the data and supporting more action-focused research. We've got lots of data, and I have been giving you really the very high level. We are willing to work with any of you to share some of that, the deeper data as well. As we move into the next section of the program today, of this summit, in a very special video, we will hear some powerful member voices that put the human face on the statistics that I have just given you. And then we will hear from some distinguished thought leaders and policymakers from each of the countries about what this evidence means to them. In closing, special thanks to the USAID Cooperative Development Program for its generous support, to our research partners and participants in Kenya, Peru, Philippines, and Poland, to the OCDC board and our CDO members, to the people who have shared their data and their stories, to the authors of the various study reports, and to the great International Cooperative Research Group and OCDC staff. My great thanks to each of you for being here, for your kind attention, and your interest in our cooperative research.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Judith, for that wonderful summary of this research. I'm sure all of us are looking forward to reading these different country reports. And it's just amazing to hear the fact that in 4 different countries, 4 different, you're looking at over 8,000 people that have been spoken to, that you can find these threads of commonality that are telling us that truly there is a difference that cooperatives make, and that it is a positive difference in these different aspects. So thank you for that. And as you mentioned, there has been quite a lot of work that has gone on behind the scenes, and I'm really excited to show you some videos from all of these 4 countries that were put together by a 9-time Emmy award-winning producer, Henry Tannenbaum, who actually gave of his time. He did this pro bono because this is his way of giving back, and we're really truly excited about the work of
Four countries, 4 reports, all demonstrating the benefits of cooperative membership. And to bring those findings to life, we recruited video teams in all 4 countries to illustrate on a personal level what difference do cooperatives make.
Antes mi pueblo se dedicaba principalmente a la agricultura de subsistencia, porque los productos con valor monetario necesitaban mucha agua, y aquí el agua es un recurso muy escaso y controlado. Desde niño siempre me ponía a pensar cómo se podría salir de tanta pobreza. A los 16 años, con mucho esfuerzo, me gané una beca para estudiar en la ciudad. Me fui con la esperanza de volver con nuevas ideas de desarrollo para mi familia y mi pueblo. En el instituto aprendí que el Perú posee la mayor variedad de cacao del mundo. Pero el mejor cacao y el más peculiar es el cacao blanco nativo que nosotros tenemos. Es muy buscado porque solo representa el 0.25% de la producción mundial. Ahí me di cuenta que mi comunidad tenía un tesoro y no lo estábamos aprovechando. Después de graduarme, volví a mi comunidad con la esperanza que el cacao blanco nos sacaría de la pobreza extrema. Pero fue muy difícil. No habían las plantas necesarias. Las personas de mi pueblo no creían en mi proyecto. Había resistencia al cambio. Me volví a ir. Esta vez toqué las puertas de la cooperativa Norandino. Ellos ya eran una cooperativa grande que trabajaban y exportaban cacao blanco. Ahí les hablé de mi pueblo. Les expliqué mis planes y les pedí su apoyo. Rápidamente accedieron a ayudarme. Me volvieron socio de la cooperativa, me dieron semillas e incluyeron a mi pueblo en su cadena de comercialización. Con el respaldo de una cooperativa bien conformada, empezamos nuevamente a trabajar y a difundir el cultivo. Aún así no fue fácil. El primer año con mucho esfuerzo solo producimos 60 kilogramos, pero ahora mi pueblo está comercializando 70 toneladas y la producción sigue subiendo. Con el cacao blanco y la cooperativa, muchas personas hemos logrado salir de la pobreza extrema. Para mí es un enorme orgullo haber logrado esto. Siento gratitud por mi cooperativa, por haber compartido su éxito. También agradezco mucho a mi pueblo por haber confiado en mis sueños.
I am Feli Ramos, 57 years old, a wife and the mother of 7 children. I am a teacher, a business owner, and a member of the first Laguna Electric Cooperative in the Philippines for the last 34 years. My husband and I came from poor families, but we have a dream. We dream of a brighter future for our children. This dream began to take shape when we became a member of our electric cooperative. My husband put up a tailoring shop with only 3 electric sewing machines as our tools in producing school and office uniforms. Our cooperative afforded us to give reliable electricity, which made the difference for us. Soon we were able to get big projects. Our biggest break came when we were able to supply the Scout uniforms in our provincial jamboree. Imagine supplying the Scout uniforms in these thousands of Scouts in the entire province. Then, as a teacher, I dreamed of putting up my own school. Again, this dream was powered by our electric cooperative, even installing a separate transformer for our school building. They had believed in our dreams, which was more than enough for us. We had opened our doors to hundreds of students for their learning. My family is now living in our dreams. We are able to do this while being a help to our community. God blessed us with a cooperative that power dreams.
Bodabodas or motorcycle taxis are a familiar sight in Kenya. But in 2009, in the town of Nanyuki, the independent drivers, already struggling with low wages, were facing attacks and murders by robbers, police harassments. After one funeral, 500 boda drivers came together and formed a group to exert their collective power and mitigate the crisis. From that successful mobilization, Nabosa was born. Within a decade, at meetings like these, members were celebrating Nabosa's evolution into an influential social and financial cooperative, transforming the lives of members like John Maina, his wife Jacqueline, and their 3 boys.
We have come from far because we once lived in a village called Likie in the rental houses. I was a freelance photographer, but through the challenge of technology, from filming to digital, we were challenged.
John had to take a low-paying job driving a boda, but that allowed him to join the Drivers Cooperative and the new Drivers Circle or Savings and Credit Cooperative.
And our first loans were 3 motorbikes. We bought 3 motorbikes to our members, and from there we had new members every day.
I got a loan there. I bought my own motorcycle.
As a motorbike owner, John earned enough to buy a second boda and hire a driver. He and Jacqueline have taken loans for their children's school fees and for Jacqueline's dressmaking business. And then the biggest step.
This is our home, which have been financed by Nabosa Sacco Society.
We called our members again and we told them that now we want them to shift from the rental houses and to have their own, to become their own landlords.
This house is 3 bedrooms. This is sitting. We have a kitchen there, washroom.
For a motorcycle taxi driver and his family, owning a 3-bedroom house is quite an accomplishment. So as a cooperative member, John has been able to go from an employed photographer to homeowner businessman. And just recently, the cooperative's Facebook page proudly announced that John had received financing for a car. With the support of his cooperative, John Maina Mwai is no longer a boda driver.
Yes, I'm John Maina Mwai. I'm in travel services now with a car. I'm a taxi driver.
With the collapse of the communism and rising prosperities in the 90s, many families sought new lives and new living conditions. A step up from the Soviet, impersonal housing blocks like those behind me.
People in the 90s were dreaming about leaving their small apartments and going on their own. It was a time when I was alone with my 3 sons, and we had to find a shelter, a roof over our heads, and it wasn't easy after moving to Warsaw because the housing market here was not so affordable. Then I heard about the new model of cooperative housing. A group of residents hired one operator who organized the whole investment. Most of participants took advantage of savings and mortgage loans, which were newly introduced on the Polish market in those days, in the 90s. We started coming together from the first winter when we had to clear snow from our driveways. We spend our free time together. We go together to the Tatra Mountains for New Year's Eve. We go together to the Masuria Lake region to smoke fish. There were whole cavalcades to Turkey, Italy, and other family expeditions. There were also dramatic moments in the life of our estate. For example, when in 2010 the Vistula River almost overflowed the flood banks, we had to carry sandbags under the embankments and secure them. For me, cooperatives are all about building community, and that is the highest value. It is not only an investment, not only walls, but first of all, people. I did not feel lonely when my children left home. On the contrary, I had the feeling that I'm part of one big family.
So what an inspiring video. We hope that you enjoyed. It was quite the effort to put this video together with video producers in each one of the countries and our lead videographer who pulled the pieces together, Henry. So we're so, so grateful. I'm covering for Wangeci. She's having a little bit of connection issues, and we're very excited to introduce our panel. So Wangeci will be joining back in when she's available. So I'll hand it back to her and I'll come in case she needs me again. Over to you, Wangeci.
Thank you so much, Leah. Thank you. This is all about teamwork. And as you can see, we're trying to make sure that it continues to flow smoothly despite technology challenges. I guess it's the era of the Zoom meeting, right? And this is par for the course. But thank you for that, Leah. And I hope that you heard before I got dropped off that Henry Tannenbaum, who is a 9-time Emmy Award-winning videographer and director, producer and director, is the one who put those videos together. And he also worked with local teams on the ground in all the 4 countries, despite all the restrictions of COVID. I mean, it was quite an amazing feat, and we're so thankful and just so proud, and thank you for putting those stories together for us. So over to the panel now. I'm really excited about this one because we get to hear from researchers and cooperative leaders from all the 4 countries. We're going to hear from Professor Isaac from Kenya. He's from the Cooperative University in Kenya. We're going to hear from Professor Novak, who's from the university in Poland. We're going to hear from Maritza Canales, who is a cooperative leader in Peru. We're going to hear from Saray, who is also a cooperative leader in the Philippines. So all of them will be on our next panel, and I have lots of questions to ask all of them. We're going to go into each of them one at a time, and we're going to begin with the very first question is going to be to Professor Isaac. I hope that you are ready for us. And the very first one that we want to hear about is, you know, given the fact that we've had this research finding, what do you think is particularly useful to increase the uptake of cooperative development in Kenya? Over to you, Professor.
Yes, hello. Thank you. I got knocked out for a while. I just came in good time. I think the summary that has been given by Judith really provides a broad, high-level findings. But from my perspective, and maybe to put what I'm going to say in perspective, I just want to give some statistics about Kenya. A population of about 50 million people in 2021. Roughly, we are looking at about 50-50 in terms of men to women ratio. A GDP that has been growing over the last several years at about 5%. Cooperatives that number about 23,000 is according to the records from the State Department of Cooperatives, approximately 15 million members. And therefore, the findings of this study really have an implication and directly impact a large population of Kenya. And what we see from the findings is that effectively being a member of a cooperative does contribute to the overall income of members. And perhaps then this really goes into supporting the government's effort to improve the economy, but also to improve the overall well-being of the Kenyan citizens. So really for me, the fact that this study shows and proves to us that being in a cooperative does significantly, that does improve members' income, in the sense that the members have higher incomes on average compared to others. But there's also the fact that it does improve, the income of women particularly. We know that when you look at the Kenyan statistics, although we have more than about 50% of the Kenyan population being women, only a smaller proportion of that are members of cooperatives. But this study does indicate that being a woman and being in a cooperative does improve their income. And for me, perhaps then, how do we use these findings to advocate for women's greater involvement in the cooperative sector? The other, I think, finding for me, and what I find interesting from the What Difference Do Cooperatives Make, is that the cooperatives positively contribute or influence the quality of life. And particularly during this period of COVID-19, we are looking at resilience and whether cooperatives are supporting their members effectively. And for me, the findings from the study, and particularly in Kenya, do show that the cooperatives really have do influence positively the quality of life. One other thing is that the cooperatives also, and particularly in the rural areas, are a key supporter of education, particularly in terms of enabling members to access resources to be able to send their children to school, and therefore improve the overall well-being of people, particularly in the rural areas, but also in the urban areas. But beyond this, we also see that cooperatives can actually be used to improve, the leadership qualities, and particularly if we get to involve women more into leadership positions. Of course, the question is how. Maybe we'll be talking about this later on. But I also see cooperatives, and particularly from these findings, as increasing the voice of women in cooperative management. I think for now, I think this is what I see as being the key message that I take away from this. So we need to look at how then to increase, membership in cooperatives, and in particular, how to bring women into greater involvement within the cooperative field, but also how to, better the skills of members, not just focusing on, the people who are managers within the cooperatives, but, to bring greater involvement of the general membership within the cooperative sector, so that, this perhaps then will improve their overall income in a bigger way. Thank you, Wangeshi.
Thank you so much, Professor Isaac. That was very wonderfully detailed. We'll circle back and pick some of your thoughts around the participation of women. I think that's a thread I'd like us to carry through. But before we do that, I'd also like to hear from Maritza Canales. I would really like to hear from you what positive findings from this study do you think would be useful to address some of the problems that are in Peru right now? And how do you think cooperatives can
Hola, ¿me escuchas?
Hi, yes. Can you hear
so,
me?
Maritza, I want to just repeat the question for you in case
Marisa, voy a repetir la pregunta para ti aún. Sí, está bien. Sí la escuché. Muchas gracias. Buenos días con todos.
Thank you. Don't worry. I listened to the question. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share with everybody, all the participants, the importance of this study, this research, in order to be able to work how we can work out a plan of incident in 1,248 cooperatives in Peru. In the census, 30% are farmer cooperatives. Another percentage is savings and credit, then services, and then other cooperatives. So the meaning of the cooperatives, the farming cooperatives, is huge, is big, and is important. And it's important to be able to identify mechanisms for the development that could be scaled up against public policy. So then we are going to be able to find significant and real evidence and how the farmer cooperatives have been able to make an impact. And we cannot deny the impact of these farmer cooperatives since 2018, and they have been developing a lot of contribution in the financial economy, $71 million in direct exportations to international markets, which is extremely important for our country, commerce and trade. In case of the financial cooperatives, credit and savings are very relevant for the cooperative sectors. And then over 14,000 million soles in Peru, so it's a great impact. For the last 2 years, there have been a lot of regulations for these cooperatives. So, and now we know that they represent a true door of access for financial access for a lot of sectors, especially for the agricultural and farming sectors. So it's important to be able to upload the very relevant results in order to be able to identify the clue aspects of the development. So improve incomes. One of the things, the cooperatives improve incomes, and this was a transverse horizontal result everywhere. 74% of the members that participated in the studies in Peru, they said the cooperative membership increased their incomes. So that is very meaningful, and we have been seeing that for years now, especially in the farming sector and in the countryside sector. So the farmer cooperatives, the agricultural cooperatives, are going to be able to help with commercialization and distribution of the produced, and they are going to be able to regulate prices in different territories, because in our country, the first limitation that we have in our country is the distribution of the farmland, because little producers can only have access to 2 or 3 acres of farmland. So these cooperatives are going to be able to help to regulate the mechanisms of distribution and negotiation of the prices of the produce for the producers and for the buyers. The other important aspect is the transversalization of the focus of the gender. Is not only like a justice policy for social justice, but also is going to be able to address another social problems. With the cooperatives, we are going to be closing these gaps, and it's important to look at the importance of 58% of women stated that their economical situation had been improved because of the membership to cooperatives. But then in Peru, the management or leadership quota in the cooperatives for women is low, 38%. So this is very important to notice. So they tell us what routes should we follow in order to be able to include women, worker women, and women that have been able to keep and maintain and finance their families. For example, in our case in Peru, women were left alone after the drug dealing issues that the country faces in years or generation past. So they were left alone with their families, and as the only way to support their families. So we need to include these women in all these cooperatives. So for example, in cacao cooperatives, there are 19 regions of our countries that have cooperatives in that matter. And also we have to start a conversation about the social issues, education, training, and also, like you have been said, in the post-pandemic times now, the importance of the cooperatives in order to be able to distribute that message between cooperatives and with the cooperative members, and how to apply all the knowledge that we have in the pandemic management, hygiene, all the measurements that we need to continue taking. And we have to continue producing contents for all the members of the cooperatives in order to be able to keep and maintain their health during the pandemic and post-pandemic times. So we know that the cooperatives are taking on the job of distributing all this knowledge when the government cannot do that. So it's very important that the cooperatives continue to tend to have an impact in front of the decision-making people in order to be able to be turned into a truly instrument for a community and social development and progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maritza, for that very detailed answer. We do appreciate that. We're going to hear now from Professor Novak. Professor Novak, my question to you is, given what we have heard today, what we would like to hear from you is how the perception of what cooperatives are has changed in Poland. If you could give us your views on that, and especially given the context and the historic context of Poland, it would be really good to hear from you how the results of this study, how that has reflected the changing views of the cooperative movement in your country. Thank you, Professor Novak.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you for invitation for this nice conference meeting, and it's a good opportunity to meet a lot of people in all the world, and it's really impressed for me. And also, I would like to say thank you, Dr. Judith Hermansson. It was a really great job and a lot of data, a lot of information. I'm a scientist, and for us, it's just like bread for living. And now just come back to cooperatives and your question. If you remember the movie in Poland, this video movie, the woman says building community, I just right. And it's important things, what you ask me, it's a perception of changing perception of cooperatives in Polish society. And our history is complicating. Our history is not clear like less countries in Europe. It's we are being occupating in 19th centuries, and we are fighting with our occupants. It was Russia, German, Prussia occupants, Austria Empire, and the cooperatives, it was one of our tools for that, to keep identity and it was kind of things building community. And it was really interesting if I'm here with women. And now I can say the cooperatives help us to create new kind of communities. It was before First and Second World War. We built a cooperative movement, really strong cooperative movement in Poland. It was a very important part of our economy. But after Second World War, when we start be, in my opinion, occupied by Soviet bloc, we are being in Iron Curtain, we just have a cooperative, but it was kind of negative experience with socialist cooperatives period. During this time, a lot of people remember that it was kind of oppression of our community, of our society, I can say, and it wasn't cooperative movement. It was kind of politics, tools for creating a new world, new communist world. It was crazy, in my opinion. And now we can learn, cooperate together, and we can learn to help us in our new situation which we are. In 2004, we are joined to European Union. Instead of being a member, kind of rich peoples. It means rich consumers, rich citizens, but we are still poor in that group of consumers. That we are trying to create this greater social capital because we was divided. It's crazy market economy. I can say wider market economy divided our society, and the cooperatives are really a good opportunity to create this community. And also what we try to learn, especially in rural cooperatives or agricultural cooperatives, only when you are together, it means like farmers, you have chance in concurrence on market. If we compare, for example, position of Denmark farmers, they are 100% member of cooperatives. In Poland, is quite less. It's like only 15% of farmers are a member of cooperatives. But it's a very important thing for supporting concurrence on market economy, and we learn about that. And it's important lesson for our society to create the new model, new and old members of cooperatives. Now we have this kind of two kind of members. It means new members of cooperatives. They are more focusing on social, on economic benefits. It's new. They just thinking like income is most important for us. And to be a member of cooperative, it's a chance for kind of subsidies or something which helped me to give a better position on market, on concurrence. But also we have very interesting movement, social movement. It's like, I'm calling old members because they are focused on social benefits. It's a first goal of these people. And they mostly are young people and focusing on food cooperatives. What is interesting, they use the word in English cooperatives because not using Polish word like spółdzielnia, it's mean cooperatives, because they try to show, so it's something new, something better. It's mean because we are together keep our attention on quality of food, on cheap food, because of course, this is still important with economic goals. It's not so they are just only thinking about post-material value, only about cultural value, but they are first give attention on quality of food, and also they just creating this, building this community, this fantastic feeling. So I can trust in other people, because my research in my country shows, especially in poor groups, people, they show so the barriers which are important to crucial to jump for this barrier. It's to have trust for other people. Don't close to our homes. And the cooperatives, it's a good opportunity. What say Dr. Judith about that? To build a greater social capital. I think so. It's a main lesson for that. And also, I would like to say, so the very important is for me to possible to compare this data. If you look in this data, this is not so big differences between this data, and it's very interesting. So this I can say social movement, or the idea of cooperatives, it's work in different societies, and it's very useful idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Novak, for your very impassioned thoughts on the data. We truly do appreciate that. I think that what you have said also leads very nicely into the question that we have for Sir Elevano, who's going to be our next panelist, Sir Ray Elevazo, who's the Executive Director of the Cooperative Development Authority in the Philippines. You know, Professor Novak, you've talked about the differences in how the cooperative movement is being viewed and being used as a means of inclusivity, right? And my question to you, Sir Ray, as far as the Philippines is concerned, is, you know, how can the CDA recalibrate the message about cooperatives in order to reach a broader audience? And in the Philippines, and especially for those who are less affluent, because interestingly enough, within the Philippines, the cooperative members are more affluent echelons of society, rather than yes, it's true, the data has shown us that most people who are members of society, of co-ops, are better off. But in a lot of countries, including where I come from in Kenya, cooperative members are from all walks of life, and very often, you know, like the video that we saw, you know, it's people who are earning, not earning so much income in the beginning, and then collectively they're able to improve. But for the Philippines, it's quite interesting that this is sort of like a middle income to upper middle income who are members of co-ops. So if you could tell us a little bit about how this data can be used to open up this cooperative space to all sectors of society, we welcome your thoughts. Sir Ray, please.
Thank you very much, Ongeki. Good evening from the Philippines. Our warm greetings. And good morning to other people who are watching this webinar and conference. Insofar as the CDA Philippines is concerned, a strategic and massive information campaign specifically focused with the less affluent echelons of society should be conducted, keeping in mind 7 areas of action. Number 1 is probably message simplification through the use of popular slogans or promotional materials easily understandable at ground level, with contents that reflect or describe actual or evidence-based benefits that people can have if they join cooperatives. Number 2 is to use stories related to cooperatives and how they affect change in individual members' household or community lives. And then another is to utilize different dialects to provide cooperative information for deeper reception and appreciation, given the diverse ethno-linguistic state of the Philippine society. Also, one area to be looked into is to review the extent of utilization of quad media with the intention of maximizing utilization of all media platforms, especially social media, which is popular and accessible for people in grassroots level and within the human and material resources capability of the Cooperative Development Authority. And then one area to be looked upon also is the implementation of the CDA Communications Plan of 2022. We have that document as approved by our Board of Directors. It was recently approved. And one also is to vigorously pursue the vigorous pursuit of integration of appropriate subjects on cooperatives and cooperativism in the Philippine education system, both in basic, tertiary, and technical vocational levels. And lastly is the partnership with local government units, specifically the cooperative development officers. In that sense, we can reach millions of Filipinos who are not yet members of cooperatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sir Ray. We really do appreciate what you've said, and especially the fact that you were so clear in the kind of steps that we can take and how this data can be moved forward, because that is actually a thread of today's summit. It's this idea that, you know, yes, we've got the data. It's really good that it is reflecting, you know, really positively on how we can use the cooperative movement as a whole to come, you know, to improve all our societies. And I like the fact that yours was a very well laid out plan of action. And I do appreciate that. It was also really good to hear from Professor Isaac about how we can make sure that we include more women, especially in leadership around cooperatives in Kenya. The fact that the data showed that across all 4 countries, that women feel empowered, they feel that their voice is being heard, they have a sense of security and of community. And this is reflected in that data. And as Professor Novak said, it is really around, you know, it goes back to that sense of community, that sense of solidarity and of togetherness. And if anything else that we have learned during this COVID pandemic, it is the fact that we are better together. I know that it's a hashtag, it's this slogan we keep saying about hashtag better together or hashtag build better. But this case, we actually have the evidence that is showing us that we are in the right direction. As somebody pointed out in the chat, they said that this is like a choir. We need to preach and sing it out loud on the rooftops to everybody, that having cooperatives makes a significant difference in communities and in people's individual lives. The fact that you have a sense of belonging, but also a way of moving forward with the market, but in a manner that is people-centered, you know, I think is really, really key here. And the fact that this research started even prior to COVID and the results are being underscored and the importance of the results are being underscored by our collective experience during this pandemic, I think is extremely important. So, you know, I'm really grateful for all of your remarks, Maritza, both professors, Sir Ray. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, reflecting on what this data is and what it reflects in your own countries. And also, as all of us participating in this conference, if you reflect on what has been shared today and you have any questions, please don't forget that we have our Q&A function. You can ask your questions in English or Spanish or Polish. If Sir Ray agrees to give us, you know, to give us translation, you can ask it in Tagalog as well, but put your questions in the Q&A. We have promised to get those answers back to you in written format over the next couple of weeks. In addition, continue using the chat function. We're seeing your comments there and we really, truly appreciate it. And again, thank you so much to our esteemed panel today for sharing your thoughts and your reflections with all of us today. And as we wrap up this evening, we're going to ask all of you to think about how we can push this forward. How can we action all of these things that we've talked about? And we're going to hear from you before the end of this summit. So make sure you tell us that in the chat and tell us that in our poll before we end. So again, thank you to our esteemed panel. We're going to now go to video messages that we have received from policymakers, policy influencers, and researchers from the different countries where this research was done. We have a message from Ali Noor Ismail, who is the Principal Secretary of the State Department for Cooperatives in the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Cooperatives here in Kenya. We have a message from the Honorable Joseph Nkabo, who is the incoming chair of the Cooperative Development Authority in the Philippines. We have a message also from the outgoing chair. So thank you, Sari. I'm sure you had something to do with that. And that is from the Honorable Orlando Ravanera. We have a message from the director of the Instituto del Peru, Dr. Richard Webb. And we also have a message from Professor Zofia Chirarolzik. I'm sorry, I probably butchered her name. And she's from the University of Natural Sciences in Poland. And we thank you. And I'm going to switch over to Sam to go ahead and play the video from all our esteemed guests. Thank you.
It gives me great pleasure to join you on the occasion of dissemination of research findings under a study titled "What Difference Do Cooperatives Make?" that was conducted in Kenya during the period May to November 2018. The Kenya study is part of a 4-country study involving 3 other countries, Poland, the Philippines, and Peru. Looking into the national and international development plan, cooperatives play an important role in socio-economic development. It is a business model that is accepted globally, having changed the livelihoods of many people, both in urban and rural areas. International Cooperative Research Group under USAID has undertaken an important research which shows that cooperative membership greatly benefits men and women from an economic standpoint. Despite the benefits cooperatives offer, it is important to note that there is a continuing unequal participation of women in cooperatives. This new research, as well as similar research that has come before it, have found that women make only about 30% of cooperative membership in Kenya. These statistics have not increased since 2012, according to an ILO research. Limitations to women's membership must further be explored, and I urge OCDC to work with the Cooperative University of Kenya to explore this further. The What Difference Do Cooperatives Make research found out that cooperative membership requirements, such as land ownership, impact on the positive outlook for women. Despite lower economic levels of participation, most participants felt that men and women were treated equally in the cooperatives. There is a positive difference between the incomes of women cooperative members and women who are not members of a cooperative. The research confirmed that cooperative women have 54% higher average income than non-cooperative women. Also, 90% of women say that membership had a positive impact on their situation as women. In the Kenya study, it was also found out that women commonly participated in subgroups of cooperatives such as service groups, otherwise known as chamas, which create both access to capital and greater sense of belonging and community. 78% of female participants reported belonging to a group beyond a cooperative. One challenge of capturing the benefits to women may be that chamas, or women groups, are not recognized as formal cooperatives. Qualitative interviews and focus groups have revealed that women are often active in the cooperatives, even if they are not considered the registered members. The social and psychological benefits to women, such as enhanced sense of self-worth, increased respect, and more harmonious family relationships, are also seen. The Kenyan study postulates that an important shift that requires involvement of women in cooperative activities as a critical component for sustainable development. Let me take that again. The Kenyan study postulates an important shift that requires involvement of women in cooperative activities as a critical component for sustainable cooperative development. We know that cooperatives create social and economic growth, and it is important that all people have access to cooperatives to fully capitalize on their important impacts. These findings should spur further debate on the role played by women in cooperatives. My department will endeavor to support activities geared towards improving the cooperative sector by increasing the involvement of women as members and leaders.
On behalf of the Cooperative Development Authority and the Republic of the Philippines, we would like to express our warmest greetings to all of you. Allow me to share our humble institution. The Cooperative Development Authority is the primary government body responsible for promoting the viability and growth of cooperatives in the Philippines in order to achieve equity, social justice, and sustainable economic development. Currently, we have more than thousands cooperative groups with millions of members receiving benefits from CDAs, 16 major development programs. Now that we are entering a new era, we are aiming to change our paradigm, breaking barriers and going beyond limits. As we strive for our cooperative sectors to reach their full potentials, our institution continuously embraces the increasing interdependence and globalization to introduce our cooperatives' resources to the global value chain. I firmly believe that the spirit of camaraderie and cooperativism should transcend borders. We are all partners of change. I am hoping we could all work together to create sound policies and transformative programs for better nation building.
A pleasant day and my warmest solidarity greetings to everyone. First of all, my highest respect to the officials and members of the U.S. Overseas Cooperative Development Council, to the International Cooperative Research Group headed by its director, Dr. Judith Hermanson, the members of the research team. Much has been said about the real score on the cooperative movement and the impact that co-ops made on the lives of the people, both its members and non-members alike. Based on a study of the World Bank as reported by the Food Agriculture Organization of United Nations, and I quote, "In the Philippines, only 0.02% is the growth of the agriculture in the gross domestic product in the last decade. Poverty is indeed worse in the rural areas, which is even aggravated by the climate crisis, as the ecological people are the victims of ecological degradation." According to the same study, the rural people are the most affected by protracted war and violent extremism. As farming has become non-viable anymore, 3 out of 4 farmers have already left farming, going to the urban centers to work as janitors, drivers, waiters, or what have you. How about our indigenous peoples? Well, they have become squatters in their own native land as the ancestral domain or ancestral land which their forefathers had occupied for hundreds, if not thousands of years, are now converted into massive plantations. These are the blessed lands of our indigenous peoples, and these are the choices of land. According to a study by the Development Academy of the Philippines, some 60% of Mindanao is now under the control of transnational corporations, and our indigenous peoples find themselves farming marginalized and highly steep mountainous areas. This painful reality is not only true locally, but also globally, as the indigenous peoples are treated like disposable waste, because when they would stand to protect the rights, their leaders are being killed based on the research conducted by the Asian NGO Coalition, or ANGOC. Well, in a world where there is so much veneration to the profit motive that has already captured the mindset of all governments, all institutions, and all universities, and where there is so much denigration of spirituality, social transformation must now begin in a world immersed in so much consumerism and materialism, and where people are not particularly interested in other people's problem or in social or global issues. Environmental concerns brought about by climate change, for instance, are too abstract and vague for them to make sense of. They are not particularly concerned about global inequality or poverty, where according to an Oxfam study, the total wealth of 1% is far greater than the consolidated assets of the 99% of the world's population. In fact, the combined wealth of the 8 richest families in the world is greater than the assets of 3.5 billion people, or half of the world's population. We cannot understand that in the world that has become so abundant, 821 million people are hungry, who are mostly in Asia and the Pacific. Based on studies, the culprit is what is called corporate globalization. However, real transformation has gained headways, and this is called cooperativism. It is considered as the great equalizer and the countervailing force against poverty, social injustices, violent extremism, and climate change. Through the continued promotion and growth of cooperatives, it also paved the way for real development, particularly in the countryside. This statement is proof of the results of the study of the team of Dr. Hermanson, entitled "What Difference Do Cooperatives Make?", where they highlighted that the cooperatives in the country have the potential to serve as a key to economic inclusion and resilience of households and communities across the Philippines. The conclusions and recommendations of the researchers were truly helpful in both the cooperative sector as well as the government in its continued quest in promoting the viability and growth of cooperatives as instruments of equity, social justice, and economic development. And we are really fortunate to be one of the countries given emphasis and focus on the research, as it enabled us to showcase how the cooperative movement transforms lives, provide opportunities, and make a difference for the Filipino people. Although much work remains to be done, I do believe that the government and the sector shall continue to work hand in hand toward a much better cooperative movement in the country. Thank you so much, and a good day to all of you. Marami pong salamat.
Good morning to you all. I'm delighted to be part of this exposition of a very interesting research project. I direct a research center in related to a university in Lima, Peru. And we had the opportunity to work as part of this cross-country study. We had already been working on different areas of related to organizational methods in production, and specifically cooperatives in finance and agriculture. And so we were especially interested in participating in this study. I should mention that cooperation has a long tradition in different periods of Peru's history, and it even though the forms have changed considerably, the interest and the high expectations, I could say, regarding cooperatives remain. So that I'm confident that there will continue to be efforts made in Peru to develop and improve forms of cooperation in production and some social activities. And I think that this particular study will help to focus and to encourage more work on those lines.
Hello, everybody. My name is Professor Zofia Chyra-Rolicz from Siedlce University of Natural Science and Humanistics in Poland. The cooperative movement had a very long and rich tradition in Poland. In the time of transition, the cooperative collaboration came back into its essential principles and values, and it is still attractive. The new type of COOPS appeared as social services, helping organize the jobs in social care, IT, cleaning, landscaping, and many other services, and helping those who are weak on the labor market, mainly disabled persons, elderly, poor families. Younger people established new housing co-ops to build flats or small houses near towns. Renovation of pre-war saving and credit groups, so named Kasy Stawczyka in Poland, for rather poor clients, they were assisted by WOCCU at the beginning of 90s, and today they form a big and strong group of credit unions. With the diversity of cooperatives in Poland, we are still lacking a systematic, objective understanding of them. That is why what difference do Cooperatives Make study was very important. It provides updated information about how members and non-members see cooperatives and what can be done to improve their reach.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Sam. And thank you for everybody who made that happen, to all our speakers who gave us their well wishes, and even more importantly, gave us some concrete steps that they see the role that cooperatives can play in their various countries. So we're going to take all of this evidence that we have heard of today, whether it was the data or whether it was the videos that were shared, and even the comments that were shared on the panel. And we're going to ask Jeffrey Moxham to go ahead and tell us what our next steps, what his thoughts are around what our next steps should be. What are we going to, where is this evidence going to take us? And what's going to be our next step moving forward? So I'd like to welcome Jeffrey Moxham, who's the research coordinator at ICA. And as we had pointed out earlier when we were talking about his Secretary General, Bruno Roland, ICA stands for 1.2 billion people who are all members of cooperatives across the world. So karibu sana, Jeffrey, and it's for you to conclude for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wangari. It's honestly an honor and a privilege, and perhaps even an unenviable task to try to thread together, the common pieces of this really, truly incredible discussion that we've had today. And I think just thinking about all the brilliant points of our speakers and through the videos, I mean, if we think about what Isaac has said on the power of co-ops for women's empowerment and the inclusion of the marginalized in Kenya, if it's Maritza's points on collective community and economic organizing in Peru, what Ray has said on the importance of good storytelling and the appropriate messaging in the Philippines, or what Peter has pointed out on the changing perceptions of cooperatives among young people in Poland. I think the message of the studies is really clear and it speaks for itself so strongly. The real question for us now, I think, how do we put cooperative development, which is obviously member driven, it's inclusive, it's centered on ownership, how do we put that really at the forefront of our responses and political strategies for economic and social development? And I must say, I think the strength of the What Difference Do Cooperatives Make research, not simply just the way that it reveals these irrefutable benefits of cooperation, it really does this in an academically rigorous and methodical and a very, very intelligent manner. And this evidence really should inform our practice. I think it sets something of a gold standard for investigations and research into the cooperative advantage. And that's something I think that really captures a very special element that we somehow all know intuitively for those of us working within the co-op movement, but sometimes we struggle to put our finger on that. People have mentioned today about preaching to the choir. We really do need to address, I think, the lack of cooperative education at all levels. We need to involve young people. We should be integrating them into decision making. Looking at our relationship with decision makers and political movements, we should develop this further. I think we have to be really serious about the multiple economic and ecological problems that we face, and try to spread the words to others and cooperate between ourselves also in how we can respond to the new and emerging challenges which face the movement. One element in the discussion today I think we should think about as well is, and it's a really great strength of the study, is the focus on those who are not members of cooperatives. Really great that the study has investigated that and the perception that people who are not already engaged with cooperatives have of the model in our society. That work I think is very slow and difficult, but we can all play a part in that, working together, with institutions, with governments, with partners, to really pass on this message that cooperatives do make a real difference to the lives of people. So I think it's on our national governments, it's on our international institutions, donor agencies or local authorities to try to, they could rethink a little bit the strategies there, adjust policies and allocate resources to protect and advance the development outcomes that we already have achieved in many places. So cooperative development, I mean, there is not really one template, there's not one size fits all, but I think the diversity that has been shown this afternoon is a real great strength of the cooperative movement and something we can build on. So I would say the evidence, it cannot sit on the shelf. It should inform our political choices about how we choose to organize our society for the better, and this, our action should be informed by this knowledge, but that requires really a willingness from us to act, to collaborate, to bring the resources and bring the right people together. So I think, yeah, we have to, as you know, as a movement, we have to look at how we can find our place in this historical moment, and the cooperative response is as relevant today as it was in the early days of the ICA in the 19th century. And we have to think about, what does a cooperative economy really mean? Something that's, you know, distributed by design, people-owned, democratic, politically autonomous, and thinking about positive social, economic, and environmental outcomes, always supported by the internationally recognized values and principles of the movement. So, and I think really the work has shown the benefits don't just accrue to members, the benefits are accruing beyond that and far beyond the privileged few. That's a true hallmark of a cooperative economy, and something that we need to place at the center if we are to move forward. So I'll stop there, and I thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for summarizing that so eloquently. You've done an amazing job, and you're right. It is a time for us to, you know, go beyond preaching to the choir and being able to take all of this evidence and push forward for data-driven decisioning that does show how well this model can work, and the fact that we have, you know, we're looking at these benefits across 4 different countries. We're looking at very different economies and cultures, but the result is, you know, is consistent in the fact that it does make a difference to be a member of a cooperative, and it is a positive difference, because, you know, we do know that externalities exist. So thank you for your remarks, Jeffrey. There's still a lot of work for all of us to do, but I do think that this is a huge first step, especially because we're looking at pinpointing data to something that is as nuanced as, you know, how do you measure well-being? How do you measure perception? But, you know, Dr. Judith Hermanson and her team at OCDC have done a remarkable job of pulling these threads together. And there's a question that's been put in the chat for all of us as participants, which is, you know, where are we going with this evidence? What are we doing with this result that we have here today? If all of you could put in the chat the one thing that you're going to do to drive this forward, we would really want to hear from you. You can go ahead and let us know how you intend to move into action, because today's summit was not just about presenting the data, but it was really truly a first step, because we want to see this action. We want to see how cooperatives can be part and parcel of our people-centered recovery. In a post-pandemic world, where we remain with what is key, and that is truly people and planet. Profits are good; they can come, but let them be in that order. That this recovery is going to be people-centered, and that is the only way that we can go ahead and build back better. So thank you for your remarks, Jeffrey, to the panel as well, and again to USAID, who are the ones who have funded this study and have been real supporters of the cooperative movement through their work with the Learning Group, through OCDC, and through other partners like you know, global communities that they support, amongst others. I'd like to welcome now Paul Hazen, who is the Executive Director of OCDC, to give our closing remarks. And, you know, and just as Paul comes up to talk to us, you know, he's a man who has the cooperative principles and its movement at heart. His whole career has really been around the idea that we do better when we're together, and that his and you know, and the growth that he has had when he was at the helm of NCBA CLUSA is also a reflection of the fact that, you know, you can do well collectively. That it's true, you can have a people-centered model and still be profitable. And you know, and the work that he was doing there, you know, is clear evidence of that. And the fact that we continue to have research showing that the well-being that is enjoyed by cooperatives members is here with us today. So Paul, over to you to close us out for this morning.
Thank you, Wanjishi, for your insightful observations on the positive impact of cooperatives that they have on their members, and for your leadership today. I really want to thank you. And greetings to our friends around the world. I want to especially thank our country partners and USAID for making our research project, What Difference Do Cooperatives Make, possible, as well as all the people who contributed their time and talents to make it a success. This research project fulfills OCDC's mission to champion, advocate, and promote effective international cooperative development. OCDC is building a center of excellence to provide leadership, best practices, research, and training for effective international cooperative development. As we seek to create a more prosperous, democratic, and inclusive world post-COVID-19, there has never been a better time to build back better and increase investment in cooperative development. Cooperatives bring a unique set of solutions to today's most difficult development challenges. OCDC's research group focuses on issues related to the impact and effectiveness of cooperatives in developing countries and emerging markets. But we can't do it alone. Designing and undertaking these research projects, which bridge the gap between theory and practice, require partnership with academic institutions, cooperative development organizations, and cooperatives of all kinds. We learned today just how these partnerships can work. This is where you can help. We need to continue building a body of evidence based on sound, rigorous research that can inform best practices, influence policymakers, donors, and advance the cooperative development community. That's why I'm inviting you to join with us today to bring your ideas, your talents, and resources to build a more prosperous, democratic, and inclusive world. Please feel free to contact me with your thoughts and ideas and questions. Once again, I would like to thank our partners, USAID, and especially the research group colleagues for making this Global Evidence Summit a success. And thanks to all of you for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody, for such a wonderful conference. We hope to see you the next time we have something that we're opening, and have a great evening. We will be hearing from OCDC with all the answers to your questions that you put on the Q&A. And again, don't forget to tell us how you're moving this forward in the chat before you log off. Have a great day and a great evening wherever you're logging in from.